teachers, have you ever been mistaken for one of your own students? I was 23 when I started teaching 8th grade science, and I learned pretty quickly that looking young is funny until an adult actually believes you're a student. The first week, a substitute teacher stopped me in the hallway and said, "You're going to be late. Get to class." I laughed and told her I taught here. She stared at me for a second, apologized, and walked away. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. A month later, I was standing outside my classroom during lunch when our new assistant principal came around the corner. "Why aren't you in the cafeteria?" "I'm supervising my students." She looked at me like I had just told her I was the principal. "You're a student." I actually laughed. Then I realized she wasn't joking. I reached into my pocket for my staff ID, but before I could show it to her, one of my students came running down the hallway. "Miss Parker, someone took my backpack." The assistant principal immediately turned to him. "Take your friend back to class." He pointed at me. "She's my teacher." That was the first time I saw the assistant principal's face change. But the embarrassing part wasn't being mistaken for a student. It was what happened 3 weeks later. I had a student named Caleb who was constantly getting blamed for things he didn't do. He wasn't exactly a troublemaker, but he was quiet, sarcastic, and terrible at defending himself, which apparently made him an easy target. One afternoon, a teacher accused him of stealing a set of expensive calculators from her classroom. 3 calculators were missing. Caleb insisted he hadn't touched them. The teacher said she had seen him near the supply cabinet. The vice principal called him into the office. I happened to be walking past when I heard Caleb say, "You keep saying you saw me, but you didn't." The vice principal snapped, "Watch your attitude." I stopped outside the door. Then Caleb said something that made me walk in. "You didn't even check the camera." The vice principal turned toward me. "And who are you?" I froze. "I'm his science teacher." He actually smiled. "No, you're not. You're one of the students." Caleb looked at him and said, completely seriously, "She's literally the teacher." The vice principal told me to leave, so I did. But instead of going back to my classroom, I went to the security office. I asked to see the hallway footage. At first, they refused. Then I showed them my staff ID. 5 minutes later, we were watching the camera footage, and there was Caleb walking past the classroom. He never entered. But 20 minutes later, another teacher walked in carrying a box. She went straight to the supply cabinet, and when she came back out, the calculators were gone. I took the footage to the principal. She called everyone involved into her office. The teacher who accused Caleb started crying. She hadn't stolen the calculators. She had apparently moved them to another classroom and completely forgotten. They were sitting in a cabinet less than 30 feet away. Caleb was cleared, but the part I'll never forget happened afterward. The principal apologized to him, then she apologized to me. She said, "I'm sorry we didn't take either of you seriously." Caleb looked at me and whispered, "Guess we're both invisible." I laughed. Then I told him, "Maybe, but next time somebody says you're lying, make them prove it." He smiled. And from that day on, every time another adult mistook me for a student, Caleb would walk past them and say, "Be careful, she can grade you." Honestly, that was the best defense I ever had.